An invitation to a college dinner in 1910. Do you know what all these books are? They're visitors' books.
Perhaps you thought the signatures might become valuable.
Hadn't thought of that. Wells came several times, and here's Bertrand Russell for lunch. Do you think I ought to keep them?
No. Here's Dr. Baston's autograph.
I'm afraid you'll find me in a lot of pages there.
August 3rd to 8th, 1918. Do you remember that visit?
As a matter of fact, I do. It was the first summer after the war. Beautiful weather. We played cricket in the long meadow. You children, too.
I don't remember.
It was before they built the dye factory. So you could understand back then why the house was called Wild Grove. There was a wood of wild nut and beech trees where the housing development is now. I remember I hit a 6 into the River Wandle.
It must have been nearly 8 that summer.
I'm going to bed. Are you coming in?
No, I want to finish this chapter.
It's long past your bedtime.
I remember it was so hot we all played in our bathing drawers. What happy times those were.
I won't be long, Aunt Sarah.
I thought your oration was spoken very well, Dr. Baston.
Thank you, my dear.
Are you really going tomorrow, James?
Yes, I have to.
I'll see you in the morning.
I'm leaving very early, I'm afraid.
I'll get up. Good night, James.
Good night, Sarah.
I thought of that game this afternoon. We were in the same field. You children called your father the demon bowler. He bowled underarm but very fast.
Yes, I remember. The tennis ball.
I don't remember.
Poor father. Here are the expenses for a holiday in France in 1910. A bottle of red wine, 1 franc 50 centimes. Filed for future reference.
1925? That was the year I was ill, the year they sent me away to school. Who's William Califer?
Don't you even remember your own uncle?
No. Didn't he get an invitation either, or is he dead?
Your father never very had much to do with him.
It says he was here for 3 days that autumn.
Yes, it was the last time. He behaved rather badly.
It's bad enough to have a convert in the family, but then he became a priest.
Glad I'm not the only pariah among the Califers.
Bertrand Russell here again. Hope he was worth his meal ticket.
Well, Anne, how were the vows?
Uncle James, if I put some water in the hall, will you take it to the potting shed?
Oh. What? Why the potting shed?
For your dog, stupid.
Couldn't you do it, Anne? You've been looking after him.
I think after what happened today, Spot would prefer you. Greene was so angry.
I don't know where it is, Anne. I've forgotten where it is.
I've shown you, down the path by the laurel bushes. You've seen me go there. You can't miss it. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Dr. Baston.
Good night, Anne. It's a good thing when a sad day ends.
It wasn't all sad, was it? I thought it was awfully funny when Spot came bounding along looking for Uncle James and you dropped the ashes.
It wasn't very nice of your grandmother, and it spoiled the ceremony.
You were just saying, I now consign to the long meadow. You could have altered it quickly and said, I now consign to the river.
Do go to bed, Anne.
Don't forget the water, will you, Uncle James?
How heartless children are.
Oh, I don't think she meant it like that. She was just being practical, that's all. Her mother was the same. Help yourselves to whiskey.
Thanks.
Please.
Still, it is unfortunate that you had to bring that dog.
Yes, I know. I forgot. Was Mother asleep when you went upstairs?
She seemed to be.
You'll tell her goodbye for me. Tell her I'm sorry I butted in.
You exaggerate.
Do I? Fancy a Califer being a priest.
Well, as a priest, he hasn't entirely been a success.
Some people believe, don't they, that Spirits of the dead pass over a glass of wine, rippling the surface as they go. Will whiskey do? Can you invoke the dead with whiskey?
What nonsense you talk, James.
Well, it is the method that your uncle is said to use.
You mean he drinks?
Inordinately.
How unlike a Califer. Well, I'm going to bed.
Don't forget about your dog.
Oh, the dog. Surely he can do without water just tonight. It's late and he'll be sleeping, and it'll do in the morning.
What? So long as he doesn't wake Mother with his howling.
Couldn't you do it, John? You know the way.
And be bitten by the end of it. Look after your own dog, James.
Well, I've forgotten where the potting shed is.
I told you where it is. Down the Laurel Walk. You can't miss it. And there's a flashlight on the hall table.
Listen, he is howling.
You better let him out and keep him in your room. For God's sake, James, do something. He's going to keep everybody awake. He hasn't changed. Always difficult. Do you think I ought to look through all these books, Fred?
I wouldn't. They wouldn't fetch much.
We did have some distinguished visitors. Do you know how to pronounce CZDCH?
That was the Polish delegation. Disappointing lot. Very unsound on evolution.
Oh, I'm sorry interrupting.
Can't you sleep, Mother?
Well, I did for a little while. Has James gone to bed?
Yes, and we are just going. Try to sleep.
The book will help. You've done a lot of tidying up already, John. You and Fred have been very helpful. Well, this ought to put me to sleep. Oh, I'm sorry, Fred is one of yours. To Henry Califer, great leader and a great friend. Strange, that doesn't seem true any longer.
I don't follow.
How could you, Fred? But for nearly 50 years, I looked after his laundry. I've seen his household. I've paid attention to his allergies. He wasn't a leader. He was someone I protected. Now I'm unemployed. Please, both of you, go to bed and leave me alone.
But you have your family, Mother.
You don't need protection, John. You're like me, a professional protector. It wasn't what I intended to be, but men either form us with their strength or they form us with their weakness. They never let us be.
Now, Mary, you mustn't let...
Poor James had to suffer. We did him a great wrong, Henry and I. Why shouldn't he know as much as we know?
It would be a mistake. And besides, what do we know?
You've never told me anything.
I don't want your empty spaces, Fred. I don't want anything except Henry. Henry alive, somewhere, somehow.
Mary...
I've often talked so harshly of him to you, and yet I loved him.
I loved him too.
Please, John, both of you, go to bed and leave me alone. I'll be all right. But I'm not strong enough yet for sympathy.
Come up soon, Mom.
I will in a little while, but it's such a big room. I'll move into Sarah's when she goes. Good night, dear. Good
You'll
night,
call
Fred.
us if there's anything.
Of course. You must look after that sty, Fred. You've been picking at it again. And you a doctor.
Good night, Mother.
I'll look in at Henry before me.
Don't worry, Fred. We'll all be making that mistake for a while. Today when I was ordering lunch, I said, not string beans. He always hated them. Now we can have them every day.
Mistakes like that are a sort of immortality. You remember Samuel Butler's sonnet, "Yet meet we shall, and part and meet again, where dead men meet on lips of living men. As long as there are you and I and his books."
He has 3 copies for export. There was once a Caliber Club, do you remember?
Yes, I was going to write to Macmillan's and suggest an biography, an intimate biography with letters.
Don't, Fred. Wait until a publisher writes to you. I'd rather hope than collect polite refusals.
As you wish, but all the same, they did suggest when he had his first bad illness.
That was 30 years ago. Your oration will do just as well for those who are interested. I'll have it printed for private distribution only. Do you think 200 copies? It was very dear and generous of you. Only that wretched dog. Oh well. I'll read myself to sleep with your book, Fred. Good night.
Good night.
Turn out the light, dear, as you go. Henry. Is that you, James?
Yes, Mother.
I thought you'd gone to bed. What's that you've got in your hand?
A bowl of water for the dog.
Oh,
Mother, I began to take it to him, but
yes, dear?
I couldn't. I was too afraid.
Why afraid? Was it the darkness, dear?
No, I don't mind the dark.
Then what was it? Tell me what happened, dear.
I was afraid just before I left the house. As though I knew someone was waiting for me among the laurels on the path to the potting shed.
My poor James.
Mother, I'm sorry about coming here, disturbing you and then the dog.
Don't worry, my dear. You're my son, James.
Yes, I'm your son. Will you please tell me now that Father's gone, what's wrong?
Wrong.
Wrong with me? So that you were afraid to see me? Oh, except in between trains when you were taking Anne to school. Do you remember that time we met for tea at the Cardamom? I made you meet me. But I still hoped that for a moment you'd be glad to see me. And I walked in from the street and there you sat, hard and afraid. Afraid of me. What did I do all those years ago that was so terrible, Mother?
You're imagining things.
No, Mother. Usually there's a moment when parents begin to speak the truth to their children. It's been a long time delayed in our case.
There never is such a moment. First the children are too young and then the parents are too old for the truth. James, please.
Then there is a truth.
You'll have to go somewhere else to find it.
I've already looked in some strange places.
Yes?
Once a week I go to a doctor and he injects me with methadone and I talk and talk.
What good does that do?
None yet. I tell him how my marriage broke, my childhood, all of it that I can remember. How my parents avoided me. Aren't we supposed to learn love from our parents? Like we learned to walk? Mother, you taught me to walk, but I have no idea what love is.
That's not true, James. You had love, so much love, my dear, until...
Until what?
Please, James, it's very late. Don't ask me tonight.
I'll be gone tomorrow.
We shouldn't have buried it, but now it's been buried such a long time, I don't know what it would look like.
Mother, please. Close your eyes and imagine for a moment that I'm your child. There's something I don't understand and I fear it and I've come running.
I've got to protect Henry.
He's dead!
Can't I be loyal to him for a few hours?
It won't affect him.
How do we know?
I don't. I thought you did. Don't worry, I won't ask you again. I dreamed for a moment I was your child and you were my mother and I came to you with my fear. For now I thought my father's not here to be protected. Doesn't a child deserve protection too? I told myself you were a mother like any other mothers and I was your son like any other son. Someone you can comfort so easily by lighting a lamp and saying they're only shadows, dear, or giving them a toy spade to dig with.
What do you remember that spade? You were only 6.
What do you mean?
He can be hurt by such silly things. You spoke as though you never liked that spade, but you were so happy.
I've never remembered something so far back before.
Let me go now. We can talk again one day. Goodbye. I don't suppose I'll be up when you go.
Hello.
Oh, what do you want?
That's an awfully difficult question to answer.
What have you been up to out there?
Listening.
That's awfully wrong.
Don't Don't you ever do anything that's wrong?
Yes, and sometimes I can't even remember what.
Are uncles prohibited
Uh-huh.
as husbands?
Yes.
That's a pity. We'd get on very well together. You see, I don't know what love is either.
You certainly have been listening.
I'm curious by nature. I'd make a good detective. When my vow's over, that is. You can't expect a detective to always tell the truth.
Why were you listening?
I was on the prowl, and I heard voices. There's an awful lot to be found out everywhere.
Everywhere.
I'm afraid of the potting shed, too. After dark, that's why I wouldn't take the water to Spot. I kept on thinking, out, damn Spot. Because you know, if there were ghosts, the potting shed might be haunted. And you can't be sure of anything, can you?
But why the potting shed?
I heard the gardener talking once to a man who'd come for seedlings. He was talking about Potter, the gardener they had here years ago. He said, I always thought Mr. Califer was pleased when old Potter passed on. He meant died, you know. And the man said why, and Willis, he's the gardener they have now, said, I reckon it was because he was here when that thing happened. He saw it all, right here. Something shocking it was. I don't like the smell of mold, do you?
Something shocking?
I expect they hushed it up, but that's why I kept thinking, out damn Spot.
I don't believe you.
You must, because of my vow.
It didn't have anything to do with me. I couldn't have done anything that shocking, not at that age.
He said, poor Master James.
Well, I remember nothing. Nothing. I don't look like someone who could do something as shocking as that, do I?
No, you don't look like that. But then again, I don't suppose people usually do. Anything's possible, isn't it?